The forest was ancient, far older than the town it bordered. Locals called it the Grieving Pines, because when the wind blew just right, the trees seemed to wail. But on still nights, the silence was worse. Evelyn had grown up hearing tales of people vanishing into those woods, search parties finding nothing but torn clothing or rusted tools near unnaturally clean-cut stumps. But tonight, standing on the edge of that forest, she wasn't thinking about old legends. She was searching for her younger brother, Charlie. He had been missing for 2 days. His bike was found overturned on the trail that cut through the forest, its frame bent at an odd angle, as though something impossibly heavy had pressed against it. The search team had called off their efforts at dusk, but Evelyn refused to leave. Something about this place clawed at her nerves, like the forest itself was alive and waiting. The flashlight in her hand barely pierced the fog. The trees loomed like skeletons, their branches reaching out as if to snag her. She called his name, Charlie, but the sound barely carried before the mist devoured it. Then, faintly, she heard it. A voice. Evie! Her breath hitched. It sounded like Charlie, but stretched and hollow, as though the voice had passed through something unnatural before reaching her ears. She turned in the direction of the sound and froze. A figure stood in the distance, partially obscured by the mist. It was the right height for Charlie, but his posture was wrong. Too stiff, too rigid. Charlie, she called. The figure tilted its head sharply, as if startled by its own name. Then it stepped forward, the movement jerky, almost insect-like. Evelyn's flashlight flickered and died. She slapped it frantically, but in the brief moments of darkness, the voice came again, closer now. Evie, come home. The beam snapped back on, and the figure was gone. But now she realized the forest had gone completely silent. No wind, no distant rustling, just her shallow breathing and the oppressive weight of something watching her. Her legs refused to move as a low growl rumbled through the air. The trees around her seemed to shudder, the bark splitting as blackened sap oozed down their trunks. And then she saw them. Eyes. Dozens of them gleaming from the shadows too high up to belong to any known animal. A scream built in her throat, but before she could release it, the earth beneath her shifted, roots bursting from the soil like claws. They wrapped around her ankles, pulling her to the ground as the growl rose into a guttural, otherworldly roar. The last thing she saw before the darkness consumed her was the figure again, standing unnaturally still, its mouth wide open in a silent scream, as if it had been trying to warn her all along.